Iraq and Afghanistan aren't the only wars that America is currently fighting. The war on drugs has been going on since Nixon, and marijuana has been a prime target. But now 13 states have decriminalized it to varying levels, and some are predicting that the Obama administration might finally decriminalize it on a federal level. Is it time to end marijuana prohibition? We're going to investigate the subject right now in The Loop. Joining me from Irvine, California to help us make sense of it all, a recently retired Orange County Superior Court judge and author of Why Our Drug Laws Have Failed and What We Can Do About It, Judge Jim P. Gray is here. Welcome, Your Honor. How are you?
Well, it's nice to be with you, and it's good to talk about this important topic.
Now, Jim, you're part of a growing coalition of civil servants who are advocating the legalization of marijuana. What exactly brought you to this decision?
Well, you look back over my professional life, and I was a former drug warrior in the United States Attorney's Office, a federal prosecutor in Los Angeles, been a judge for 25 years in the trial court here in Orange County, California, and you just look back over that time period and see, are we in better shape today because of these efforts or not? And the answer clearly is no. It depends how you might describe what our goals are, but if our goal is fewer crimes, less drugs available for our children, more civil liberties, or on and on, we're just not doing it well. So I came to that realization and decided, you know something, a conservative judge in a conservative county who has never used marijuana or any other illicit drug can at least get people to discuss the issue. So I've been doing this for a number of years now, and we're making progress because people are beginning to discuss it, and, of course, because of the huge violence that's now spilling over into our country from Mexico and other places. So people are now receptive to the discussion. It's time to talk sense. It's time to realize that we have options to this failed and hopeless policy of drug prohibition, and then it's time to start utilizing some of those options.
Well, Jim, with regard to this war on drugs, you write in your book that the drug war is, quote, wasting unimaginable amounts of our tax dollars. It's increasing crime and despair and severely and unnecessarily harming people's lives. But I mean, there has to be some sort of upside to this war for it to have been going on for so long.
I would have to ask you and our viewers, you tell me, think of one positive thing that's come out of drug prohibition. I can't think of anything positive from this terribly harmful prohibition that we have been foisted upon ourselves.
Well, here in California, Assemblyman Tom Amiano is actually trying to legalize marijuana. And what would this bill that he's proposed, what would that actually do?
It's Assembly Bill 390, and it would basically directly treat marijuana like alcohol. However, there's a proviso in it that will only go into effect 30 days after the federal government changes its laws, because this would now be a violation of federal law. But he talks about several things. Number one, he talks about taxing the stupid stuff. And when I was at the press conference with Mr. Amiano, the chair of the State Board of Equalization in California also was there, a lady named Betty Yee, and she said that her government had looked forward through this and had determined that we could generate tax revenue of at least $1.3 billion every year in the state of California alone. So those are funds that are not being taxed at the moment. Of course, we would have to decrease the price by at least half to drive the illegal drug dealers out of business, but even so, $1.3 billion would be quite a difference. He also recognizes that we're now spending in California taxpayer money of at least $1 billion every year in a futile effort to eradicate marijuana, as well as prosecute and incarcerate nonviolent marijuana offenders. And of course, you can tell how successful we are in eradicating marijuana, because today it's the largest cash crop in the state of California. As I tell people, grapes is number 2, but marijuana is number 1. So it's fully available. Let's just recognize that. Let's utilize it. Let's regulate it, control it, and tax it, and we'll be an awful lot better off.
Jim, finally, because we're running out of time, I need to bring up the disaster scenario here for my mother, who's very concerned. Let's say marijuana does become legal here in California or even nationally. What happens next? I mean, are we going to see Amsterdam-style cafes in the public? Are Camel and Marlboro, are they going to be selling it out of the 7-Elevens next to the Slurpees? What about the kids, Jim?
Sure. Well, and fair enough. You know, what we should do is, again, go to allow each state to choose the best way for its people. So then if Kansas comes up with something that doesn't work, but Nebraska comes up with something that does, Kansas will tend to go toward Nebraska's approach. I envision where it will be regulated and controlled for adults, brown packaging. The government has to own it so that there's no advertising. That's key, because if Philip Morris owned this or stuff, they would have a First Amendment right to advertise, to push it over the airwaves, which I certainly do not want to do. But we're not going to be a nation of zombies under any circumstances, and basically people will experience, in my view, that effect that they have realized in Holland, where they've made it boring. So they've taken the profit motive out of it, they've taken the glamour out of it, and then a lot of people will find out, this just isn't for me. Some of the people will come down the ladder, and instead of using cocaine or alcohol, might decide to use marijuana. In a lot of ways, that would be a good thing, because marijuana is less harmful than the drug I use, which is basically wine. So I don't envision a problem with this. Once the novelty wears off, I think that people will basically kind of treat it in a humdrum sort of way, and then knowing that they'll be held accountable for their actions if they drive a motor vehicle or otherwise, it'll become pretty much a medical health problem instead of a criminal justice problem, and I think your mother will be pleased with the results.
Well, Jim, on behalf of my mother, myself, and our viewers, I want to thank you so much for your time and your well-reasoned thoughts. We really appreciate it. Judge Jim Gray, thank you for keeping us in the loop.
Good luck to us all. I wish you well.